Hey there, my name is Hitesh Devasi, and you're listening to the Creator to Creator podcast, where I talk to other creatives about their journey and experiences. This week, I sit down with Leen, who created a fashion brand from reworked vintage and pre loved clothes. We discuss sustainability and how our community influences our decisions. We're live. Perfect. Thank you for doing this, bro.
No worries. I'm happy to be here, of course. My buddy.
So, what are we going to talk about?
We're going to talk about the topic of sustainability and how it relates to what I am doing right now.
Well, yes, that's definitely one of the biggest topics. But it was nice today morning seeing all of the response. How was the response?
The response today, I was, you saw me for the past 2 hours just sitting on my phone, just dedicating the time to actually respond to everyone one by one and make sure that they get a thank you and an actual genuine response from me, especially for the people who came out to the mall and got a mask and came to say hi and support me. It meant a lot, but I'm super overwhelmed by it. It's not something I'm used to.
To put a little bit of context on this, let's try to explain what exactly we're talking about.
So basically, 2 weeks ago, Nike reached out to me and to do a collaboration for their new Vapor Max 2020, which is made using 50% recycled material. So they have a campaign. It's a global campaign. Mm-hmm. It's not just dedicated to Nike Middle East. It's called Move to Zero, and it's Nike's approach towards moving towards a more sustainable model of production. So Nike Middle East wanted to do like a little campaign for the launch of the Vapor Max and commissioned me and another regional designer called NG, who owns 1in4 Studios, to basically use their deadstock materials, which were football jerseys that they had like huge stock from, and recycle and upcycle them into new designs. So I was commissioned to make face masks, and NG was commissioned to make a tote bag. And once the designs were approved, there was like a lot of back and forth about it and meetings with production and whatnot. But then once the designs were approved, Nike production worked closely with me to make sure that like my design and my vision came to life. And using only the jerseys, even for the ear pieces, for the lining, for the
so A to Z
filter, A to Z, the mask and the totes are made using the jerseys. So it was all put together and launched and displayed for the first time today at the Mall of Emirates store, and was retailed to some customers and given away as gifting for influencers and media who came in by appointments.
Just spread the word better.
Exactly. Spread the cause. They're friends of the brand. Maybe they've done work with Nike as well, but like it's just, to support the Nike family and community as well. And so basically today was that day. You came by, you supported me, you got a mask. You're a real one. And shout out to everyone else who came, by the way. Thank you. I love you guys. And that was basically our day today. And
So I want to come back to this one, but before this, I want to talk about how you as a person, as a creative person, started off on this journey for sustainability. What began for you in your own life? What started giving you this inspiration, but also the almost it's a responsibility feeling that you get towards the earth or whatever that becomes. How did it start for you? Because you've been doing this for a while now with your recycled fashion, and talk about that a little bit.
So basically I launched Sound on Streetwear in 2017, and it wasn't anything related to recycling or upcycling. It was just a streetwear brand, and literally not even linked to sustainability. Like it was just a small streetwear brand. I made a couple t-shirts, and it was always about supporting good causes. Like I wanted it to be a positive brand that spread positive messages. But as I started like getting more integrated in the production process and meeting manufacturers and selecting the textiles, I like slowly found myself becoming a bit more interested, or like a bit more like
On the
gravitated.
manufacturing
Yeah,
aspect.
gravitated more towards like ethical
Okay.
producing. I felt like there was a responsibility, since I was a brand owner, nothing big, like small regional brand, but still like doing my own part. Like if I could, why not produce sustainably?
Yeah.
So then I started sourcing recycled materials. Recycled cotton made from like a recycled cotton t-shirt, or recycled polyester from plastic bottles, and that would be the fabric that I was sourcing. But in the UAE, the market isn't that big for sustainable fashion, and I didn't really feel like my manufacturers were that trustworthy. Like they were claiming that the stuff I was getting was recycled, and they were overpricing me for this textile because like, yeah, we had to source this from Bali. And when I would ask them more details, like if I'm going to go and sell this thing and tell people, oh, this is made using recycled plastic and blah, 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 like give me the details, give me the paperwork, give me the facts, like I'd ask them, and then they'd keep like postponing, or like, oh, let me ask them. Like it just seemed so shady, and it just seemed like I was doing so much more work just to like do something good, like why is it so difficult?
Yes, because I think there's a lot of elements, like especially here in Dubai, we've seen I think not that people don't want it, it's just the lack of awareness element of sustainability.
And lack of availability. Like if you are in Europe and you want to find a sustainable manufacturer, like there's a million, and they get your vision. They get Southeast Asia as well too. I had one in Vietnam. It fell through also due to COVID and whatever, but like they got my vision. They understood when I said sustainable manufacturing and recycled material, like they understood what I was saying. And like, yes, we have a whole section dedicated to that. Like I felt like I didn't have to explain to my manufacturer what that was, which is what was the downfall of producing locally here, because they don't really get it.
Yeah. Is it that they don't get it, or is it also that it's not being used so much?
It's not used.
Yeah. So
it's not used, but also they don't. It's because it's not used. They don't need to know about it.
Yeah.
So the two come hand in hand. But because I was struggling so damn much to find like ethically sourced materials from manufacturers I actually trusted, I decided like, why don't I just teach myself how to sew? And start upcycling and like just revamp my whole brand, and just instead of producing using like recycled material, just make it a whole new concept that isn't something you see every day in Dubai. I didn't invent upcycling. Upcycling is a very well-known thing. DIY. Go on YouTube, type upcycling. You'll find some really cool crafty stuff. I'm on YouTube every single day. But in Dubai, actually not even in Dubai, in the region, no one's doing that. If they're doing it, it's not really something they're marketing about themselves or their brand. So like I found something that like was kind of untapped, and I felt like that was a good angle to use. And the response has been it's been pretty good, I feel.
That's nice. That's so nice to hear. Was there a particular scenario that happened, event that happened, or something you experienced that sort of led you to look more into this? Because a lot, like for example, to give the reason I'm mainly asking this is like, I, as a designer, started learning about sustainability in college, especially when I was studying in Singapore. That was a huge element of our day-to-day curriculum of just understanding what sustainability is, especially from my background, interior design, how buildings work, how you can reduce the energy and things like that. But that starts a lot of times for people from seeing something. You mentioned a little bit of the manufacturing side.
Well, I grew up in Toronto, which is, very different than the lifestyle here. We're very eco-friendly. People walk or take the metro, or like, there's recycling bins in every corner. They educate kids from a very young age, not just about reduce, reuse, recycling, but also like the circular economy. It's just something that's just naturally integrated into the lifestyle there. So secondhand shopping and thrifting, it's super popular there. Like, I loved going vintage shopping with my friends. Every Sunday we'd go to Kensington Market, we'd get some cool jackets and whatever. And like, there's something special about having a vintage piece. And that's just something that's super distant here. And there is no thrift culture. And so, that just kind of evolved from there to where I am now.
The culture here almost is like for many reasons, but it's the popular element is like the more fashion, the luxury fashion, street fashion, use and throw fashion, like the fast fashion that we call
high end brand names. I mean, don't get me wrong. A lot of people here have an appreciation for thrifting and vintage clothing, but there is nowhere here to be able to get that. There is no Kensington Market. For those of you who lived in Toronto or know Toronto, you'd know Kensington Market, but like, it's basically just thrift central. There is no low budget type of thrift store culture here. It's not available.
Cheap.
There's secondhand stores, but it's different. Like, when you go into a vintage store, you get like that
good
Levi
quality.
That Levi jacket, or that like 90s Adidas windbreaker. That's just
that
like
never break down. It will
never break down. It's just like a piece of history, and that's something that was super important to me. I loved it, and when I started this upcycling thing, I was like, why don't I integrate that into what I'm doing now, which is taking vintage, pre-loved, dead stock materials and reworking them into new designs rather than just, throwing them away.
But did you start in terms of like doing it for yourself?
It was completely for myself at first. It was like, I taught myself how to sew, not even for me to like actually be sitting and doing my DIY clothing and whatever as a business thing. It was completely for my own interest, like, I just wanted to know how to do it. I felt like I could become more creative with my designs for Sound On if I like knew pattern making and knew like the technique of sewing. But then I just found myself naturally sitting in my room and doing it myself rather than telling a tailor or a manufacturer how to do it. And it just...
So there's like you mentioned a little bit, from what I understand, there's like when you start understanding the ins and outs of like what happens in a streetwear fashion clothing brand, then you sort of teach yourself the other elements of what exactly goes into making a product. So then that also creates the freedom of like making better designs. Like you mentioned one, it made you be more creative in a lot of ways. What other aspects do you draw a lot of your creativity from, in terms of, because we have a lot of common friends, mutual friends, and I think that's one of those things like where the people around you a lot of times are the ones who are inspiring you.
100%. Like, I don't just design my pieces based off of what I like, that as much as I would love to do that, and I do that, occasionally, but I have to make things that I also feel like will get a lot of buzz and also a lot of appreciation from my friends, so that they would also feel like this brand is for them, like they feel like they're contributing to what I'm making. And it's something that's like more of a community feel, like, oh, I really love Adidas, for example. Leen reworks a bunch of Adidas stuff, or Leen reworks a bunch of Nike stuff. So like, if you, depending on what brand you prefer, like, I offer that. So if you really love Nike as a brand and you just are loyal to them, then, I provide a bunch of upcycled stuff using only Nike pieces. And so just really depends. But I do get a lot of inspiration from my friends. I get a lot of inspiration from just Dubai also, like the fashion scene here
Mm.
is huge, and there's a lot of creativity. A lot of it is surface level, but there are some really, really cool people here doing some
Mm.
unique stuff. And those are the people I really look to for inspiration. And they just kind of push me to do better. If I'm sitting at home, I feel like I'm having a lazy day. I mean, you probably do this yourself too.
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong. But if you're sitting at home, you've had a lazy week, let's say, and you're just kind of like, what should I do next? Like, what project do I need to do? And you open up your Instagram and you're just seeing your friends killing it. Like, you kind of have that fire.
Definitely. For me, it's been a big, huge thing because I moved to Dubai like 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I happened to stumble upon the people that I'm surrounded upon now with like AY, Mo,
Mm-hmm.
and everybody else in our community that we
Mhm.
know. And that in the beginning was almost because I didn't know anybody here. I knew 2 people when I moved to Dubai.
Yeah.
So
Same.
actively,
I actually knew nobody.
Yeah.
Like I had my brother and his friends,
Mhm.
and good luck,
Yeah.
like
But that
make
sort of
friends.
forces you in a lot of ways also to like go out and actually explore the industry or the people around in the industry you are interested in.
Mhm.
So that began for me almost a journey of like meeting new people, and then suddenly I was surrounded with all of the bunch of these artists who are
Mhm.
in different industries, DJing, singers, producers, writers, poets.
Look, the key, honestly, I think the key is to be like as authentically yourself as possible and just do you. Like it sounds so cliche to say do you,
Yeah.
but like we know you as a photographer, as a filmmaker, and like you do you put out like crazy
Whatever you
stuff,
wanna do.
and then you get recognition for that, so it's as much as you want to say like, knowing people here helps get your foot in the door. Sure, it does, but also that's not necessarily like 100% true, because you may know people and you may be able to get your foot in the door, but like if you don't have that talent to like follow through, like you're gonna fizzle
That's
out.
huge, isn't it?
You're gonna fizzle out, or you're just gonna be known as the friend of that person doing
Yeah.
that thing, which like is useless.
And,
That
like-
just do something.
Like you mentioned, like that, just be you, do you, whatever you're making. It doesn't have to be like one of the things I love is like everybody is like doing their own stuff.
Everyone's
And
creating,
whenever
yeah.
we meet up for whatever, like it
There's
happens
a million
so
projects we're talking
Yeah.
about, hey, Hitesh, I haven't seen you in a couple months. What have you been up to? Blah, 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 blah. Like,
much. And
you're just talking and I'm talking and there's just a lot. But that's what's cool, especially with me and you and our friend group, is that, we're constantly hustling.
Yeah.
And that's something that I appreciate,
and it inspires and motivates you to also constantly keep doing more
Exactly.
as well.
But I appreciate hustlers. I appreciate people who are creating.
Mhm.
And I appreciate people who, even if they might not have figured out what their talent is, are trying to figure themselves out. I still
I mean,
appreciate.
everybody is in life, isn't it?
And
Like, everybody's trying to
sometimes,
figure out
you
life.
meet a lot of people and I just feel like they're riding other people's coattails. And I'm
Mm.
like, what? You're an amazing person, but like, who are you?
Yeah, in a lot of ways, the best thing for you to offer to somebody else, and whether it's online to other people or to even the people you meet on a daily basis, is to be authentically yourself.
And
And
you
that-
will get recognized. You
that-
will like, and when I say recognized, I don't mean getting famous and what I like. I'm not talking about that. I'm just saying like, sometimes just one person sending me like a nice message or a DM about one of my designs is like all I need for me to keep going.
Yeah,
Just one person saying like that's sick, and I'm like hyped again. I'm like, okay, yeah, like I did something good, I go back to my studio, I continue sewing again. Like just needs that one
Yeah.
person to like fuel your fire, like to get some
feels
sort of
good as
it
well,
feels
like,
amazing and just keeps motivating you to not stop.
but definitely, like you said, everything. I totally agree. And there's one like element that I got me thinking was like you said. For me, what's happened is like, especially I think around the artists, what happened is everybody is almost weird in their own way. So it allows you to be openly yourself
Yeah.
without having to worry about how you're going to be judged. And because there's a lot of that in a daily basis when you go around people as well.
Yeah.
And for me, especially, I think that's where I found the most freedom, because everybody is doing weirdly following that. You can say in a lot of ways for people can be like that stupid dream, but for that person it isn't. For that person, that's huge for them. That's their life in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
So even if it doesn't mean much to you, if it means that much to that person, you seeing that person hustle, that you seeing that person,
I will support them.
Yeah.
And so there's so many people like that, like so many people, like I see them really hustling, and like I'll be there and I'll go to your event, I'll support you. Like I see what you're doing, and I see the effort that you're putting in, just like I'm putting in. I feel I'm putting in a lot of effort. This isn't something that I just, like, Nike didn't randomly just stumble upon me after like months of not doing anything and was like, hey, want to collab? Like it's
a process.
Every day I would go and do something, a new creation, sew something, reach out to influencers, work with influencers, send them stuff, ask them to shoot content. Like I was doing a bunch of stuff other than just sewing, I was communicating to other people about my brand, about my cause. I was sending out gifts. I was sending out little note cards explaining what upcycling is, the importance of upcycling. I was reaching out to old employers. I used to work for Grazia. I reached out to my old boss and, also explained to her the whole process of what I was doing, just like it wasn't just the sewing. There was a lot of behind the scenes for this, and it obviously pays off, but
in the long run,
keep hustling, like don't stop. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that you need to do, like some days I would just feel like, what am I doing? Like I'm broke.
Yeah.
But I just kept doing it because I liked it.
Yeah, but that's another element, isn't it? Like you mentioned that you were working for Grazia. Like what sort of made you want to push into starting your own label, a company, a brand? What was that?
I loved working at Grazia. I loved working for Allison, but I feel like I'm a more hands-on type of person and a hands-on type of learner. And I love going out and interacting with other people. I love, I don't like routine is a better way to put it. But also like I am very hands-on. So the whole office job aspect wasn't the most ideal for me in terms of what I felt was the best of my potential. I felt like in terms of long run Leen, long term, what do I want to be doing in 5 years, 10 years? It was definitely something a little bit more hands-on and not towards the journalism route.
Is there like you mentioned, the office routine, or like the element of like having restriction within the 9 to 5, 9 to 6 scenario almost? Like I've had this conversation with multiple people that it almost doesn't work because of like you cannot command creativity to come when you want it to happen.
See, that's also something I struggled with, is that I would have my office jobs and then after work I would be so drained, so exhausted, or on the weekends, I just wanted to see my friends and just not be alone, and like isolate myself and create. I just wanted to be with my friends, that like I had no time to actually create. I had no energy and no passion.
Because you were drained.
I just didn't feel inspired. Yeah. When you're not excited about the project you're working on, it's doomed from the beginning because you don't want to be doing it anyways. So I was tired all the time. And now that I freelance and I do my own thing and I set my own time and hours and just can work and hustle when I want to and take a break in the middle of the week if I want to, like it really helps maintain my creativity.
I think that's huge. Like I've seen that with myself a lot as well. And almost everybody I've spoken to in our creative environment community here has that same idea. And I think it's different for everybody as well. Because I think some people enjoy having a routine on a daily basis, but having that flexibility of, okay, I'm like yesterday was a long night.
Yeah.
We had a long 3-4 days of
Yeah.
back to back to back to back. Especially, for example, for me, if I give as an example, is like photography wise, sometimes we want to catch that sunrise and then late night. But sometimes in the middle of the day, it's free. But we're waking up at 4 in the morning, going to the location, preparing everything, making that route. And sometimes it can go up to like 11, 12, 1, 2 in the night also. So if you have multiple days like that, and then I want to take a day off.
Yeah.
I want to be able to be like, okay, especially if
you have that freedom to do that.
And that allows me to recharge almost in a lot of ways as well.
That's important. Also, your clients will appreciate that a lot more. I mean, there's nothing wrong with having a routine life too, to each their own. Everyone works differently and things work differently for everyone. But for me, I know I work my best when I'm a bit scattered.
Chaos
Does well for me. I always did well in school when I procrastinated. I always was that kid who wrote the essay the night before. I never took my time. Like, I just like having my back up against the wall and kind of having to like
scratch your way.
Yeah.
It's the underdog element almost also.
Sure, yeah.
That for me has been a little bit huge as well. Like that chaos, as you mentioned, when I have 10, 15 different things going on, I'm comfortable in that scenario. I feel very comfortable in that scenario because I know I'm doing my best to manage everything.
Yeah.
The other time when I have like very few things to manage, that's when for me it becomes almost a sort of, I have so much extra time. Then you start
to procrastinate and you start to like put it off because you're like, oh, I have time. And then you start to get like trapped in the lazy cycle.
Yeah.
I've taken up listing. I love listing. I've noticed your little whiteboard over there. You like listing too. I mean, I like waking up every day and making a list because sometimes when you feel like you actually don't have anything to do, when you actually have to put together a list, you realize so many things that could actually be done.
True.
So things that you didn't even realize when you're putting together that list, you're like, oh, reach out to this person. Oh, wait, I didn't think about this. Maybe I should also do that. You start to create more things for you to do, which also keeps you on your toes. I love listing. I'm a big advocate for it.
For me, I think how it started was I would always think of these ideas. Like there's no
write it down, list it down.
Right? But then like you forget them if you don't write them down.
You need to.
So that's when I started doing it.
And
as
also,
soon as I started doing it, I saw the difference.
The second you write it down, maybe the initial idea you get is a shit idea.
Generally it is.
And then it starts to like, brainstorm into something amazing with a real concept, a real vision. And that's done obviously by putting pen to paper and like really taking the time to think about it.
It almost becomes like the first step to start whatever your idea is.
Yeah.
And
it's like any assignment, you have to do your research first. You can't just walk into an exam and just wing it.
Yeah. And some people like to wing it. For certain scenarios, I think it works, but doesn't work for every scenario, especially if you're trying to build something and make it as a long-term process of like making as a brand, for example.
If you're trying to expand it, winging it works. But if you want to expand it, you're going to have to eventually sit down and brainstorm further into it.
Go through the process of eliminating the bad ideas or changing them into making them better. There's so many
Or talking to other people. Like, I struggle with this a lot. I like to keep my thoughts inside my head. I just struggle with sharing my emotions sometimes with other people. And I've realized every single time I've spoken to my friend about a certain project or an idea I have or whatever, and they put their input in or their 2 cents, like they've just helped me so much elevate it into something bigger, or, like they've just given me because everyone has their own experiences too. So they have also their own expertise or their own guidance. So with their little inputs and whatever, it just helps make it bigger. There's nothing wrong with asking people for help or for advice, especially your friends.
Yeah, I think it gives an additional perspective as well from
It's so important. And then maybe they can link you up with someone from their network or their circle that you might not know. and could be super beneficial to what you're doing.
That happens a lot. But why do you think there is that? Like, because I've seen myself have that struggle sometimes as well of like sharing those ideas. Why do you struggle with that? Would you say?
Fear of rejection.
Okay.
Or like fear of maybe like embarrassment that like my idea is
Not
wrong
good.
or stupid or like it's not as cool or not as creative enough. You know, like I get a lot of ideas in my head. Some of them are like really dumb, you know, like when you're just sitting at night and you're just dreaming, like some of my ideas, I'm like, oh, wow. I wake up the next day and I was like, oh, wow, that's not like a legit thing.
Yeah.
But some of them are like cool. And then I tend to just keep it in my head for a bit and digest first. I like to digest it out and like see if it's something that can grow. And like, if I feel like it's something that's strong and like actually a good concept, then maybe I'll bring it up to someone. But like that process, and I'm still working on it as an individual.
How do you ever stop working on that? I think like, because that feeling of, it's almost like the word for it from my experiences has been like the imposter syndrome that everybody has in a lot of ways. Like no matter how good you get, everybody has that feeling of maybe my idea is not that great. And I've spoken to a lot of people.
It's hard to open up. It's easier said than done, you know, but like it really is hard to open up to people, and even to some of like your bestest friends. Sometimes like just saying something, it's not as easy as you think, and a lot of your insecurities start to come into play, especially if like you are in the creative industry, you know, you have a lot of crazy ideas and it's easy to get insecure about them. So I am definitely trying to work on like being a bit more vocal and open about like my ideas, my goals, because, you know, I want to get a lot more help and advice and support from my friends, but I am doing that slowly and growing, but it's something that I'm consciously trying to do. You know, it doesn't come naturally to me.
I think a lot of people have that definitely, because it's very few people that you meet on a regular basis who are so like comfortable being open about everything they think and everything they feel. And especially in our creative community, that happens a lot more, that you're not, because there's always the other people. I think that comes a little bit from comparing also yourself to like the bigger idea, somebody who's been in the industry for a
that's the worst thing to ever do is compare yourself. I mean, everyone's guilty of doing it. Everyone does it naturally, but like I also consciously try and stop myself from doing that too, because the second I start doing that is it's a downhill, but like it really, really starts to get to you, you know, like you really start to get into a dark place creatively and also emotionally, and, you know, for your own mental sanity, just don't do it, you know. Everyone's timeline is different.
You are where you are at the moment, and like the way like the analogy I usually use is like you are presented with a set of cards at your life, whatever that cards are,
100%.
and then from there you go to wherever the next stage is. Not everybody starts from ground zero.
Age is just a number. Don't compare yourself to the same person your age.
That's a huge one, isn't it?
Don't do that. Just don't do it. This is exactly why like I'm not even like a lot of my friends come from various age groups, you know, like it's just not important to me. Everyone's on their own path, and just let time take its course. Let life happen. Just hustle. Obviously,
Keep
don't
doing your best.
Don't sit and be like, why is nothing happening to me? And then like you're just kind of doing nothing, you know, like hustle, do something, be creative, be you, like kill it. You'll get all the support from me. But just
it's that process
don't compare
part,
yourself
isn't it?
to
Like
people.
you have to,
it'll eat you up.
Definitely, and it's that part of that process, and like you have to make sure you enjoy the process, because I think too many people also like are so caught up and like consumed with the idea of I want to make it, and they get so absorbed with that particular thing that they're not putting that energy to like just enjoy where they are at the moment, not enjoy the surroundings.
Be present, enjoy where you are at, and also enjoy your friend's successes too.
Yeah.
Like if your friend is in the same industry or trying to do the same thing that you're doing and they have a win and you've been coming down from like a couple of losses, you know, like enjoy it for them and like really make them feel good about it too, because just like you've been hustling, your friend's been hustling too. So like be a good friend and be supportive, because when your time comes, they're gonna remember if you were supportive or if you were salty.
I think that's something I want to get into a little bit more detail, because that was one of the huge reasons like I moved from India, because like after I finished my college in Singapore, I moved back to India, started a job there. There was just this, I understand
competitiveness,
the competitiveness,
okay.
But there's obviously like the population of India comes with the different challenges. Like there's less opportunities, so there's more people trying to get that opportunity. So it's the mentality was almost in a way like, if I give it to him or if I share it with him, then I'm not getting it. You know, that happens a lot with some people.
Yeah.
And I was just it was just mentally like killing me in a lot of ways. I made that decision of like, I can't do this anymore. I need to be somewhere it doesn't affect me, this mentality. So I needed a fresh start almost for that regard. So I was like, okay, let's move. And what's sort of been your experience? Have you had that experience before? Or because here I don't feel that way at all.
I've had a lot of supportive people in my life. I don't think I've ever really encountered personally for me, or at least maybe I have, but I just didn't notice or didn't care to notice. I mean, I'm a very strong, independent person. I've never, ever since I was a child, really cared what other people thought much about me or if you don't like me, you don't like me. Yeah. Boo-hoo. If you love me, great. Love you too. Like besties. Yeah. You know, so, but I've been very lucky. I feel like I have a good judge of character though, which is why I feel like I've been lucky, because not that I judge people from the start, but I can tell when someone's speaking to me, whether they're being genuine and authentic with me. And I think that in the long run has really paid off, because the friends I've made, you know, I've never lost a friend in my life. The friends I've had have been my friends since I was 5 or 6 years old, and are still my brothers and sisters. The friends that I've met even from like a year ago or 2 years ago, love them like a brother or a sister, you know, like they're real friends. And from here to Toronto to wherever else in the world, you know, like I still stay in contact with all those people, and like they're real, genuine people, and I support them and they support me.
I think that just amplifies the idea of even more like the people you surround yourself ends up being such a huge impact on you. And like for me, that's why I started to make Dubai as a home, was because I found like that community where I understood that this person's not putting you down just because they're in the same industry or the same group or anything like that. Like I had so many people help me from the beginning when I started off photography as a freelancer here. Like if they were busy on a particular day, Tumi, a very good friend, she was one of the first person who did that for me as well. And I
that's what I love about Tumi, by the way, is that Tumi has a really good platform, a lot of good connections. Shout out to me. I love you. Love you. But yeah, she does exactly that. Like she helps use her platform to put other people up, you know, like she's a very good example of someone who's confident in themselves, is hardworking, hustles. And because she's satisfied with herself and her work, she's also, you know, spreading the love, sharing the love. And she's helped me a lot. You know, she's done shoots for me and didn't ask for payment, just, you know, love and hugs and like, you're my bestie, I'll help you out. Like she's supported my brand, she's supported me, she's given me advice, you know, like there's so many other people like that. Another one of our mutual friends, Resha, I mean, that girl would literally do anything for her friends, and has done anything for her friends. And those are the type of people that I like surrounding myself around.
Definitely. I think we've told this multiple times, but you cannot stress enough how important that is in a person's life, especially a creative's life. At least it never stops being more important, but when you're beginning, I think that's so huge that when somebody else is supporting you, it gives you the confidence as well. Oh, this person's supporting me. Maybe I am good enough, because a lot of people struggle also in that aspect from the beginning. Like, I don't know if I'm good enough to maybe start doing freelance. I don't know if I'm good enough to maybe charge people, things like that. Because too many people have a hobby or a passion that they want to start as maybe a side hustle or something like that, but they never take that final step of almost a leap of faith in a way, because you have to, because no matter how much you practice, no matter how much you learn, how good you become at a particular skill, there will always be that leap of faith that you have to take.
You
Like,
need to
even
take that leap of faith. Yeah.
even as a starting a company or a brand like you did. So that part, like when you stopped working for your previous company and you started your brand, was there that element of taking a leap of faith? Was that hard?
100%. I cried when I left my job. I was so scared. I cried when I left my
and
job.
everybody's scared.
There goes your steady income.
Yeah.
There goes your support. There goes your rent, first of all. First and foremost, there goes your rent for being in Dubai. Okay.
Yeah.
So like the whole thing is just scary. And I came to my parents in Abu Dhabi. My family lives in Abu Dhabi. And I just remember when I made the decision to leave my previous job, like I was crying, like I was actually upset, and I hadn't even left yet. Like I knew that I was going to make that decision, and I was just nervous, like I don't know what will happen next, but I know that this is what needs to be done.
Yeah. And a lot of times it's the aspect of like, you're really happy with what you did, but now it's that the time is good, or like now I need to take that next step, and I need to be okay with the decision I've made. And that element of being just comfortable with yourself, you can be afraid, you can be worried that where is the next rent going to be paid from, or things like that. But you need to be comfortable with yourself in a lot of ways, thinking about, no matter how this turns out, I made the step and I'm gonna see it through.
Yeah.
And just give my all, and afterwards be even happy with whatever transpires from it, because not everything like becomes a success all the time. Yeah, but also giving up on the first time is not also an option.
No, you can't give up.
No,
you can't give up.
You have
okay,
to be
if
persistent.
Something's not working, then rebrand it to make it work. I did that. There are so many streetwear brands, regional streetwear brands in Dubai, not just in Dubai, in the region. And it's hard to just come in strong, just labeled as one of many streetwear brands. You need to have something like, okay, that didn't work for me, so let's do something really, really different. Let's shake things up a bit. That's where upcycling came into play for me. No one's doing it in the region. I do it already. I love doing it. I've been doing it since I was a kid. I used to always steal my older sister's clothes and just like make it
different
for me. It wouldn't even be hand-me-downs, to be honest. Like it would be like brand new from her closet, still tag on, and I just grab it and like cut it up. The amount of times she yelled at me. But yeah, I like doing it. Like I said earlier, I like being hands-on. So
yeah, that's the thing as well. Like sometimes it's like you're already doing certain things that you enjoy, and just seeing those in a certain different light, a different perspective, can be advantageous for, like, if you're doing a brand, like for how it happened for you. And in a lot of ways, I think similar for many different people as well. It was certainly for me. Like I listen to podcasts all the time.
Yeah,
I consume so much podcasts. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Like Joe Rogan's podcast, I've listened, I think, over 900 episodes of his podcast, and each one's like 3 hours long. And for me, what changed from that was like I became way more conscious about the sort of information I was consuming, because everybody talks about what you eat is what you are, and a lot
you
of
are
physical
what you eat. Yeah.
But then nobody sort of makes that connection even for like your mentality. If you're consuming a lot of bullshit information all the time, your brain's also going to be in a lot of ways thinking about all of the nonsense that are happening every day. At least that's my case. I cannot speak for everybody, but that was my case. And as soon as I started making the transition of consuming information in terms of, okay, I'm starting a brand, I'm starting a company, let's consume more information that's related to that.
You need to
Read
research
books on
you
that.
need to read, research, network. Networking is very important. Going out, meeting people, seeing what other people are doing, seeing if you can benefit or learn from what other people are doing. There's nothing wrong with having a mentor. Earlier today you were telling me about how you had a mentor, and I've had mentors in my life. That's something that's super important.
I think that's very underappreciated.
It's so underappreciated, honestly.
Yeah.
You need a mentor. Someone who's older and experienced in the industry you're trying to tap into, to just, maybe they don't have to hold your hand through everything, but just like warn you about certain things that you need to look out for or do better in.
And a lot of times, even if just seeing them the way they do things already, over time you build that way of like understanding also. Like for me, I've been fortunate enough to have many mentors in my life. Some being directly through my profession, some in form of teachers, some the biggest mentor, my dad. Like just seeing them do certain things, you sort of put certain points together and be like, okay, this is how this was done. This is how this was done. Maybe I should try it this way.
It's so underappreciated. I remember when I was just about to start graduating university, my mom was like, I was super stressed out about finding jobs and internships, anything to put onto my resume. And my mom was just constantly highlighting the importance of me finding a mentor. And I just didn't get it at the time. I was like, what the hell is that supposed to do for me? Like, a mentor isn't going to get me a damn job. And she was just like, I get that. But in your hunt for job searching, why don't you also network with other people and really just get their 2 cents on things? And I really understand what she was trying to say right now.
I think that has to do a lot with we've gone through this age or this thing in society now that you learn everything just from school or college. A lot of people have that mentality of the learning happens in the school or college. And I think that never agreed with me. For me, I hated being in school. I hated being in...
I didn't learn anything in school, okay? I actually, from what I took out of my 4 years of university is this. 0, okay? I'm doing a 0 right now. Probably the only beneficial course I took in my 4 years of university is my speech course in the senior year. Because it helped me with public speaking. It helped me formulate sentences and my thoughts better. And that was an elective. It wasn't even something related to my major or anything. It was considered a joke class. And it was every single person who took that class loved it. We were all praising the professors.
Because you were not required to do it also in a certain way.
No, it's because it's relevant to real life. Speech is something that
primary things.
It's something that you notice right off the bat. Just like when you talk to someone, they're like, wow, you have a great smile. A lot of people are like, wow, you're so well spoken, you're so outgoing. That's a quality you can learn.
And people don't talk about it enough. People don't stress on when you're in school and college, how important those things are. That's one element, but previously, before the standardized form of education system that we have now, the only system that existed was you would be an apprentice to somebody else and you would learn from them that particular craft, the skill, and then just over time build your own way of doing it and then continue to maybe do it on your own, things like that. That was the only way to learn. And as soon as I think the system of the current form of system that we have now became the most standardized version, over time I can't even imagine how many teachers in my life I've genuinely learned properly from, because a lot of the fault lies with me. I never enjoyed staying in class. I was just I could not wait for 4 o'clock to happen to get out of school.
You were in school till 4? What?
From
I was in
7.
school till 3:20 and I couldn't come sooner.
Yeah. Like every time that was my mentality, like I cannot wait to get out of here. And that's so counterintuitive, like to be what the purpose is in a lot of ways.
You should love being there.
Yeah.
You should love your
how
teachers. I mean, I've had some good years where I've loved the teachers I've had. They still have an impact in my life. You know, How many teachers?
How many teachers would you say in your life, would you say like has made a proper impact on you that lasts?
There's a couple, but there's a couple, like I'm saying from kindergarten years, you know, there's a couple, but there's one that really, really, really stands out. And it was actually my first grade teacher. I still remember her. Like, how old are you in first grade? 5, 6 years old. I still remember her. Her name was Miss Perkins. She taught at ACS in Abu Dhabi, the American school, and she really helped me out. Like, I developed asthma that year. I had to miss months and months and months of school. I basically almost had to repeat that year because of how much school I missed. And she like really believed in me and just tutored me separately, like really understood that each child has their own, like it wasn't the standardized, like if you didn't come to class from XYZ, you can't go to second grade. Like it's first grade. What are we learning? You know, 1, 2, 3. Yeah. But she just understood that like each child has their own process and whatever. And we grew so close to each other. I'm Syrian, but born and raised in the UAE. We were so close. I mean, my parents really appreciated what she did for me. She came to Damascus with me and my family. We showed her around, and she's American. Her and her husband came. We showed her around, obviously before the revolution and everything started. But like we grew so close that she even came to Syria to like learn about my roots.
But stop and think about it. You've had dozens of teachers over your lifespan until now. And you are saying you had 2 teachers, one really good, but 2, to be generous, that made an impact in your life. How crazy is that?
That's crazy, right? Yeah. Like they don't do a good job of really connecting with their students.
And even for me, it's very similar. I think I can think of maybe 2, maybe 2.5.
They just don't do a good job of connecting with their students. You know, like they come into school with an attitude and it's just like, I'm coming to yell at someone, you know? And it's just like, get to know us.
They have their own life. Maybe they've gone through something.
Of course.
But like, I think there's also
it should be a fun environment.
It should be for everybody.
I loved going to school. Yeah. Don't get me wrong. I loved going to school from the factor of my friends. You know, I loved those friends are still my friends. And we're scattered now because it was an international school, but like they're still like family. Okay. And I loved school from that aspect. But when it came to the teachers and everything, like terrible. Disaster.
For me, like I think one of the persons who made the biggest impact, that was all the way until university. That's when I started like truly falling in love with the learning aspect. Okay. In a lot of ways. And she's now like one of my best friends. She lives in Portugal now. She was in India before, but like I fell in love with learning from that. And since then, like I've developed so many additional avenues of learning. Like I love learning about history now, cultures. When I travel, when I see things like culture-wise and like picking up new skills is exciting now.
Picking up new skills. See, that's something I agree with. Don't limit yourself. You know, like just a couple months ago, I was like, well, not. Now it's surpassed a couple months, but you know, a while ago I was like, I'm going to teach myself how to sew. And I did it, you know, like, why can't I tomorrow just be like, you know what? Why did I learn?
How did you learn? Was it YouTube?
A lot of YouTube, a lot of trial and error. Most of what I learned, or like most of my learning, has been from the mistakes I made. I learn more when I make mistakes,
so, like you said,
because I know what not to do. Yeah, super hands-on. But I learned what not to do, and then I just never made that mistake. You know, when you read it and they're like, do not do this, you're gonna forget it, you know? You're gonna do it. I made a lot of mistakes and then I just learned from it.
I think that element is another thing as well. Like, and there's nothing wrong in this. I think for people who really want to be like specialized in that one particular thing, kudos to them. But I've found myself in the same category like you're talking about, wanting to pick up more and more skills to almost be that modern renaissance person.
Just keep growing as a person, you know?
And that in return a lot of times has made me a better, for example, a better photographer, even if I've learned something else.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. I'm happy you said that, because when you start growing and start increasing your realm of talents, then, okay, you're a photographer, but if you start picking up graphic design or whatever, maybe you can incorporate that into that. And if you start picking up, I don't know, some other talent, you can incorporate that into that. You know, there's so many things. Photography isn't just photography, you know, There's so many layers to it. Just like fashion isn't just making clothes and giving it out to people, you know, there's so many aspects to it, which is what I love about collaborations. You know, you can really integrate so many different art forms into one project.
True. I think that's one of the best things, like having other creatives around. Like so many times, like I've learned so many things from like say Evi as a producer, the way like one of the big things I started doing from him was listing down. Because I always
he
saw
lists
him. Yeah,
too?
he lists like crazy, like all the time whenever he has, because he's doing million things at the same time.
Yeah.
And I started picking that up over time as well. And I was like, okay, I need to start. And a lot of times you know these things. Like you know that it's better to list down. But then when you see somebody else doing it and you see that that person's like being more productive because of that, then suddenly you're like, okay, I should give it a try.
Yeah.
And that's what.
See, I told you listing works. I told you it's a thing. I love doing it. I'm such an advocate. Like I swear, I tell everyone I list. And every time someone's feeling down or like needs some advice, I'm like, list. You should do it.
And
trust me.
Knock it off
and
one by one.
It's the best feeling when you scratch that thing off. But yeah.
But what else? Something like that would you do on a daily basis that helps you just to stay creative, being able to stay productive or manage all the things that you do?
Staying creative, something that I do to stay creative is getting outside of my bubble. So recently I haven't been able to travel, but that's something really, really important. You know, Dubai gets really, like you get really sucked into the bubble here. And the second you leave, even if it's Abu Dhabi, for me, thank God, I'm very fortunate. I have that escape of Abu Dhabi. My family lives there and I might not leave the house when I'm there. I just want to stay home and be with my family when I'm there. But that's my escape, you know? And if I do leave the country, if I do travel, then that's also an escape. You know, you get inspiration from everywhere, from the people, from the culture, the lifestyle. You start to see what they're doing there, maybe how you could bring that back into your city, into your work, into
it's so different.
There's so many cool things happening all around the world. And, you know, I was fortunate enough to live in a city like Toronto where it's just such a creative hub and there's just so much happening and so many hustlers and it's so up and coming. And I feel like that also really shaped who I am as an individual, is my experience there. Because it's easy to get trapped in this artificial
daily
copycat.
Also,
it's an artificial copycat lifestyle here, you know. They don't really like step outside of their comfort zone.
True, but also I think it doesn't just happen here, because I think no matter where you are, you have that idea of like living there daily. You almost go into a mindset of like, I've been here, done that, done this, done that. So there's so many elements of the repetition on a daily basis. So then when you're suddenly away from it,
it's amazing because you change your routine and you start to like pick up on new qualities or new interests or, new behaviors even about yourself,
Just shock your
I'm
system in a
doing
lot of
this now.
ways.
I didn't know that I like doing this, but I'm doing it now. Traveling is super important, just getting out of any bubble. So if you're not able to get out of Dubai right now, especially with what's going on in the world and traveling's become really difficult, maybe just like take a trip to like Ras Al Khaimah or something, just get outside of that Dubai bubble for a couple of days and
Do a weekend trip.
you know what? Just
Whatever.
it can be a friend's trip, or it can even be like a solo thing.
Solo.
My friend did that. My best friend just got up, left, didn't tell anyone, and just spent 2 days in Ras Al Khaimah. At the time, I was like, "What are you doing? Like, why didn't you tell me? I would have came with you." But I get it.
You need that.
No, I get it. I got it. She needed to be alone. She needed that. And when she came back, she was like completely rejuvenated. And it's just, you need that. You need that alone time sometimes. Or if alone time is not important, you need your girl time or your friend group time, whatever.
For me, that's been huge. Like having that alone time has always been a huge thing that I actively try to get at least once or twice a year. And that began in a lot of ways as well. Like my first solo trip, I've traveled from childhood all the time. Every summer we would go to like a destination in India with my parents and everything. But as I grew older, those trips started becoming lesser and lesser. But like I think my first solo trip was to Bali for a whole week. I did nothing, just booked my flights and landed there. And I was like, I'm gonna just figure out as I go. I just wanna like force myself.
Yeah, there's no place better to do that than Bali. It's so
and super relaxed.
Go with the flow. Yeah. It's so relaxed. Yeah.
You don't have to worry about any major things. Yeah, but there's always things about like, okay, be conscious about where you are, things like that. Don't get scammed about certain things. But that doesn't have to stop you from like doing exploration and things like that. And since then I've done like I went to the Himalayas last year, Spiti Valley, particularly for 20 days. That was a longer, extended one. And because after I moved to Dubai, I pretty much didn't take a break for almost a year and a half. And even though that was a holiday, a break, that became more than just that. I went to explore a lot of places that gave me other ideas of starting a documentary there for certain.
You see, you start to get more ideas. And you start to realize things about yourself. Like,
what do you enjoy?
Did you ever think you wanted to make a documentary? Probably not until you experienced that and you were like, oh my God, I want to do a documentary.
Just
like
the experience, the lifestyle.
Exactly, because you need to just continue growing, because that will just allow you to keep putting out fresh content.
Fresh content just keeps you more excited on a daily basis.
Keeps
as
you
well.
excited.
I'm excited to get out of bed on a daily basis because of that. Because I have so many
when
things.
You start to repeat like the same projects over and over and over and over again, you're just kind of like, even though you love it, I'm sure like as a photographer, if you do the same shoot every single day, shooting the same model with the same clothes in the same studio, you're gonna hate your life. You're just gonna be like,
I cannot do
this.
That.
This is not what it means to be a photographer, know. But
I can give in I think a lot of people get caught in that as well. Like just they think that that's what they want, and then they try to do only that, and then they start getting bored, and then they're like, no, I don't enjoy this. So then they want to scrap it, or then the worst is like continue doing it even though they don't have the love or the passion for it. That's I think the worst part of all of it. Like if you're not happy with it, you don't have to immediately jump into something new. Because a lot of people don't have that opportunity or the availability of just leaving the job and getting into something.
Yeah.
People who are, kudos to them, they take advantage of that. But if you're not, you can still put together sort of a plan for yourself saying that, okay, I'm just going to do this over weekends and start changing something over the weekends. And then over time, build that. That's the way I started doing this. Like just build that slowly. Increase your skills, improve your network, improve the way you
I just
work.
like to say, as a moral of the story of this conversation, and a good way to wrap it up as well, is just keep hustling.
True. Keep hustling.
Yeah, keep hustling and keep, doing you.
Anything else?
I think that sums up our
big,
conversation.
big, long
You know, we
rant
got
about
really,
everything.
yeah, we just talked
But
about
that's what I
everything.
enjoy.
But like that was just, I guess, our overall
Biggest-
moral. The
True.
theme
I agree.
is keep hustling, keep doing you, keep
Yeah.
you know, staying true to yourself. And
Yeah.
mic drop done.
Mic drop. But before you mic drop,
Yes.
tell everybody where to find you.
Okay, you can find me on Instagram at leen.niz. And if you want to purchase one of my upcycled pieces, you can purchase them over DMs or head over to the Sound on Streetwear Instagram or our website, which is www.soundonstreetwear.com.
I'll put all of those down below anyways.